Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Australia's Prime Minister Scott Morrison has said his government will not be intimidated by Facebook after the social media platform blocked its news feeds to Australian users.
I think is that we set the rules that are right for our people.
Mr Morrison described the move as arrogant and disappointing. Facebook is responding to a proposed law which would make tech giants pay for news content on their platforms. Australians now cannot access local and global news sites via the site. People outside the country are also unable to read or access any Australian news publications on the platform. Nearly 7 million people in the US state of Texas have been told to boil tap water before consuming it after a deadly winter storm caused power blackouts at treatment facilities. The huge snowstorm, which is still sweeping across the southern US state, has killed at least 21 people and left millions without power. Texas has also seen widespread blackouts and burst water pipes. The state's energy grid has been overwhelmed by a surge in demand as people try to keep warm in some of the coldest temperatures in more than 30 years. Meanwhile, Texas Senator Ted Cruz is under fire after photos emerged on social media of him boarding a flight to Cancun, despite the ongoing crisis in the state. Police in Myanmar have again used water cannon against protesters in the country's capital as daily protests contesting the military government and strikes continue to paralyse the country. Protesters could be seen banging on metal objects as they faced off with police along a city road in the capital, Naypyidaw. Some of the protesters dispersed after being sprayed repeatedly by water cannon. The army took power after the Electoral Commission rejected its accusations of fraud in a November election won by the incumbent leader Aung San Suu Kyi. Police have clashed for a second night with thousands of protesters in Madrid and Barcelona following the arrest of a rapper charged with glorifying terrorism and insulting the royalty in his music. Protests began peacefully with demonstrators clapping and chanting "Freedom for Pablo Hasél" after the musician was detained on Tuesday, but the situation escalated after police charged at the crowds. Some protesters responded by setting containers alight to create barricades in Madrid's narrow streets. Ghana has presented 100,000 units of election thumbprint pads to the Republic of Niger to support its second round of presidential elections, which start this weekend. The former president, Mohamed Ousmane, has a tough race to run on Sunday when he faces off against the ruling party's candidate, Mohamed Bazoum. Mr. Ousmane promised to restore security in a country recently hit hard by a series of Islamist attacks by militants linked to Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State. Seiko Hashimoto has been appointed as the next president for Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games after her predecessor quit over sexist comments he made. The former Olympics minister is a 7-time Olympian herself, having competed as a cyclist and a speed skater. Former chief Yoshiro Mori resigned following a backlash after he was quoted as saying women talk too much. Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, is said to be in good spirits after he was admitted to hospital on Tuesday evening as a precaution due to feeling unwell. The 99-year-old was taken to King Edward VII Hospital in central London. His stay is not related to coronavirus, and a palace source said the Duke walked into hospital unaided. He is expected to be there for a few days of observation and rest. Future eruptions at Mount ETNA could trigger a tsunami in the entire Mediterranean. That's according to scientists after its latest explosive activity. Europe's most active volcano continues to spout ash and lava, shutting down the nearby airport of Catania. The warning comes after experts found that constant movement towards the sea could contribute to a major landslide along Etna's coast. The last major eruption was in 1992. And finally, French bakers are fighting for the traditional baguette to be given UNESCO World Heritage status. It's as producers in the country are increasingly fearful over the quality of bread. A French government decree released in 1993 put in place regulations over the production of traditional baguettes, which should be handmade without any additives and fermented between 15 to 20 hours. The Confederation of French Bakers, who submitted its application to France's Culture Ministry, hope gaining the status will help protect the quality of the traditional baguette. The country's final candidate for the UNESCO title will be chosen in late March. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.